Welcome to Studio One Live. I'm Hey Rude the Guru, and this is Rude Radio.
I know every town the same, every place I
We will roast your program. And all YouTubers and content creators alike. Come TV.
She has another banger. She keeps banging the questions out. And this is
If we live in a world of platonic forms that are being biologically manifest, and evolution is, you described it as being something that makes problem-solving machines, do you have a sense of your own role in that? As like, what is the platonic form of the problem that you see yourself as solving?
Yeah, so
she threw his own theory back on him. So you think we just problem solving machines that come out of this existence, consciousness. So what is your problem? Who are you? She basically asking you the old Buddhist, the old Hinduism question, who am I?
I found most people don't know who they are. They really don't.
I know my name, I know my age, I know where I live.
Yeah, that's not you, though. If you ask the average person who they are, they'll give you their name. They'll say, I'm Bob Proctor, but I'm not. Bob and Proctor are two words. My parents give them to me. They're called names, but it's not me. It's my name. Then somebody will say, well, this is me, but this isn't me either. It's my body. Like, you never phone down here to the studio and say, body won't be in today. It's sick.
Okay.
You know, we don't say am hand or am leg. It's my hand, my leg, my body, my name. Who am I? See, I think we live simultaneously on three planes of understanding. We're spiritual creatures, we have an intellect, and we live in physical bodies. But because we lack awareness or understanding of who we are, we're totally locked into a physical world, and we let things outside of us control us. 95% of the population are reacting to life. They're not really living at all.
That's basically what she just asked.
so this is just my phenomenology of it. I don't know, because I'm not able to do experiments, controlled experiments on the scale of, life and science and all of that, right? So I don't know if any of this has any truth to it. This is just how I feel. It certainly feels to me like I'm discovering, not inventing, and that the people in my lab, we are uncovering something. I don't know if they would agree, by the way, but me personally, everything that we've done over the decades, I feel like we're unearthing something that already existed.
I told you, there is no such thing as invention, only discovery. All the information there is in the fabric of the universe. Consciousness taps into that fabric of the universe. Once again, there's no such thing as invention, only discovery. And those of you who are mad at science, you shouldn't be, because science is the process of discovery.
And that has a particular structure to it. We don't make it up. We find it, and we kind of, we can do better or worse at figuring out what it is and how to relate to it and how to bring it out into the world. That's how it feels to me. I don't know that any of that is true. But
of course that's true. There's no such thing as invention, only discovery, as I said before.
Yeah, and I also think that, so here's another kind of wacky thing, and I've told this to some of my students. I also feel like some of that stuff is under positive pressure. In other words, it wants to come out. In other words, it's there for you to, like when you poke that little hole into that Platonic space by making a bot or some kind of new technology, stuff comes rushing through that hole. And I really feel like, again, this is very non-scientific. I'm just telling you how it feels to me. That's what we do. We figure out ways to kind of put a crack in that boundary, and then stuff starts pouring through the bottom.
Tearing through the fabric of this information, extracting the information from the fabric of the universe, in a sense.
You don't have to pull it out. If you make that barrier porous, it comes out. I think it's under pressure. It whatever you create in this world, that's it will pull patterns that are there.
And is that how you approach your own goal orientation in your science? Like, we're starting a new year here, and it's almost like if it's a miracle year for you, what would it look like? But I sense that it's almost like you see it as just chasing that
Positive pressure.
That positive pressure. Yeah, you're sort of flowing with it. Do you set that sort of objective bar for yourself when you look out onto the immediate future as a scientist, or are you just kind of going with the muse?
Well, I definitely think there's a muse, no doubt about that. But I also think that the space of possible things to chase after is infinite, and so I actually like on the spectrum. In some labs, you sort of show up, and whatever you do, as long as you discover something cool, everybody's happy with it. But I'm on the other spectrum, so I have a very specific research agenda. I like everybody who is hired in my lab. We're all working on very specific things where I know what I want to come out of this. So, and that's not to say that I'm defining it, like designing any of these things. It's just that there are many different things, different muses that one could tune into, and I have one particular one that I'm sort of flowing with, and that means being very thoughtful about what are the channels through which these findings will hopefully flow. The center, I've got a mind map that hangs in our lab, and it's like this giant poster that we put like 9 feet wide that we printed on silk, and the center of the mind map is called embodied mind. That's the center. So it's all the different ways and all the different questions and things that we're doing, and then different people's specific projects are sort of peppered around the leaves of that graph, and so that everybody can see where they kind of plug into this. But it's very specific and it's very curated.
It's a beautiful world that you're.
You ain't explained to us though. I know you said you want to fully program the nanobots and xenobots. Well, what is your specific goals here? Is that it? Just program it and to make billions of dollars into medical research? What is your true agenda? I might do some research on you, Dr. Michael Levin. We gotta keep our eye on our scientists, for good and for bad.
You're building. I really think that I think I've told you this before, that when I went to go study biology, I imagined that it would be the study of what is life. And I very quickly realized that it was much more mechanistic and much more molecular than that in most cases. And one of the reasons that we started this podcast was because I was certain that there were people out there who were asking the larger questions of the significance and pushing the boundaries of what it meant to understand bodies and life itself, because it does seem to be a very weird center of the universe. And obviously that's like a very, Earth-centric or human-centric perspective, but there is something that there's a motive force of life, which is the solving of problems. And the universe seems full of problems to solve. And so figuring out the process by which we can do that in novel ways seems to me to be the passage into something that is greater than the past. Because at every single juncture where humans have run into problems, the way that we have solved them is by figuring out technological approaches to resolving what has happened. And obviously that creates downstream problems, like you look at the Green Revolution or something. We have solved the problem of mass starvation, but now we have phosphate runoff and pollution of waters, and now we have so many people that we don't have regenerative agriculture that prevents us from just decimating animal life on the planet.
Hold on, ma'am. You're saying we solved the problem of mass starvation? I got 2 questions. One, has that been a problem in the first place? And if it's so, have we truly solved it? I question the first one. Was it truly a problem? Because it appears the earth has enough food for all the people. And solved it. I don't think we have solved it because I see mass people starving, homeless people. Well, if it wasn't a problem, how did we not solve it if it was a problem in the first place? Well, I don't think the problem resulted from these so-called technological advancements and ways of looking at it to solve the problem. I think we've purposely created this problem. So solving it will be purposely to stop causing the problem of hunger and starvation by hoarding the food and resources so you can sell it to the poor or control the poor.
And I think that the passage into the next era is the passage of understanding our biology much better than we ever have before. And I think that your work is really, really at the center of this. And I'm grateful to have met you and to know that someone is doing this. It's really, it gives me a lot of hope for the future.
Yeah, it does for me too. Until we really know the agenda behind Dr. Michael Levin. He said he has a specific one. Yeah, I don't amuse. Is it amusement is to be God and dominate the world? Now, I'm not going to view him as this mad scientist or nothing like that. But he did skim over the part where he said there's some philosophical questions about it, but he didn't get into it. So I'm wondering, before we give him his flowers.
Future.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm happiest about is when people get hope from some of the things I say. This is maybe a good time to point out that it obviously isn't just me. So in addition to the people in my lab that do a lot of the hard work, it's also I have some amazing collaborators that have been pulled together. Some of whom you may want to have on. So people like Richard Watson and and Chris Fields and Mark Solms and some other folks. They really make a lot of this possible because these are some of the things I say, these ideas have been around for a really long time, but they've gotten no traction because there's a huge difference between saying something and pushing it to the point where it actually generates new discoveries. And until you do that second thing, it doesn't move the needle, and that's the really hard part. And so there have been a lot of people that I've worked with that have enabled some of that to happen. And I think what you're saying is super important in the sense of understanding life beyond kind of the lowest levels of it, meaning the mechanistic molecular stuff is critical. It's going to be important for us going into the whatever the future of humanity is. The one thing I want to say though is people get hyper fixated when they hear life. People get hyper fixated on the material and on how it gets here. So the biological wet cytoplasmy stuff and the products of evolution. And I just want to say that I think life and that kind of focus on what's important is really critical. But we have to remember the protoplasm isn't magic. And it isn't unique, and the meandering course of the evolutionary process is not the only way that mind enters this world. And we have to get broader than a focus on the easy stuff, which is the material. It's really easy to say, you're made of silicon. Yeah, you're not real. You're just faking it. And really, the hard work that we have to do as a species is to get beyond those kind of superficial criteria and to really say, what do we really mean by I don't know about life. You can keep life what it is, but cognition, I think, goes way beyond the living world. And
wait a minute. Are you trying to say what I've been saying so long? All things are alive. Are you trying to say rocks and minerals could have consciousness? Are you trying to say that there are more things that are conscious and aware than just the ordinary biological lives that we are accustomed to. As I said, the sun is a living conscious being. The planet Earth is a living conscious being. The waters, the oxygens, the air, the atmosphere are living beings. These storms, tornadoes, hurricanes are living beings. You must understand this knowledge.
We have to understand, we have to develop rigorous frameworks of recognizing it in novel guises that we wouldn't necessarily say are alive.
And I think that this next year is going to be really interesting to see what happens, because I feel like we're approaching that question in a massive way technologically.
Yeah, we are. I'm really disappointed about how narrow that debate has been, and the hyper focus on language models and the kind of AIs that we have today, and the things, you know, the people just get so focused on these examples, and the broader lessons of the field of diverse intelligence haven't even been scratched yet. Everybody.
I understand that, Dr. Levin, but I really believe the language models and the AI is the key to your convincing these cells, these antibiotics, these xenobots, to build what you want them to build. Because all you have to do is ask them. Remember, if you really understand that they're intelligent living beings, then communicate with them. That's all that needs to be done.
This is all currently under investigation. Do they think they're recapitulating some kind of embryogenesis? We don't know. So the Xenobots, for example, the normal Xenobot lives for about a week, but we've been able to, if you feed them and keep them ridiculously clean, they can go longer, and they will go, I think our record is like 84 days or something. And during those weeks, it changes shape. It becomes transparent. It does some other stuff. And I don't know, is that some new developmental sequence that, you know, that normally no one ever does? Yeah, we don't know. And the same thing with the anthrobots, like is this a developmental sequence basically for this? Does it think it's an embryo? We're going to find out. We're doing all the, you know, we're characterizing all the new genes that they express, both on the Xenobot and the anthrobot side. Yeah, we're gonna find out, but we don't know yet. There was a science fiction story. I want to say it was Arthur Clarke, but maybe not. A long time ago, where they cracked aging, and so people started living longer. And what they found out was that at around 120, humans undergo all these changes. It's just you've never seen it before because nobody ever lived that long. And so, you know, they start growing a third, like a new set of teeth and all this stuff. And I think at the end, I think they grew wings and looked like angels. I forget what it was, but it was the point where, yes, actually there was this new developmental stage. It's just, you know, what we didn't access it before. But so maybe this is like that. Maybe these things have a new developmental sequence that they can do. I don't know.
Did you just hear that? He threw it on the realm of science fiction, but he said if you crack aging, which the Xenobots research may allow him to do, you start growing new teeth, new wings. Is he trying to unlock the signs of the Nephilim? I don't know, man. It's looking, that's why I say y'all gotta watch this and see what these people are actually researching, bro. Dr. Michael Levin, Xenobots and Anthobots. Well, you can't make this shit up, boy.
Intelligence could be applied to other scale systems. Like, I always thought it was really interesting that the physicists got, let's say, dominion over astrophysical or cosmic scale processes. I could imagine a different planet with humans on it that the biologists took over that work and saw different things, different patterns in the sky and different, let's say, behaviors of galaxies or systems, and approached them as intelligent, and that wouldn't be treated as superstitious or irrational in some sense.
The sun is a living being, a great God. The earth is a living being, a great God. The Milky Way galaxy is a great God, a great being. The cluster of galaxies we live in is another being of another sort, of a larger scale. And that is also a part of another life, a larger scale, a greater being. And it goes on and on and on into the highest forms of infinity.
To what extent have you collaborated with astrophysicists about this possibility? I don't know. It just seems like in some sense very heretical, but at the same time I can't find a rational cause for why that's so.
Yeah. I think two things to think about there. One is that I think the reason that I think you need an impedance match, a kind of cohesion between the tools you're using and what you're hoping to find. I think the reason that physicists always see dumb matter and dumb machines and never mind is because they're using tools that are very low agency tools, voltmeters and rulers and telescopes and things like that. These are very low agency things. All they're ever going to see is low agency stuff. I think you need minds to recognize other minds, and so that's one thing. Another thing is this. I feel very strongly that assessments of whether, I mean, people say this to me all the time. They say, "Oh, your team framework is very kind of panpsychist. So what? You're just going to say that that the weather and the sun are conscious too?" Well, my point is this: you can't.
Of course they are. Of course they are. And we're gonna, matter of fact, I'm gonna have to match this clip with another clip of non-organic life, they're calling it. But you scientists are far behind. The earthquakes, the tornadoes, the hurricanes, the weather storm systems are living entities and are intelligent and make their decision how they make their decisions. And they do what they do. You must understand it. Yeah, they want to pseudoscience it, but he just said he will crack any physical model now, shatter it. Until they accept the supreme one, science will lead them into oblivion.
Can't say that. You can't just say anything. You can't say it is or it isn't. You have to do experiments. And so both directions are bad, right? So in the olden days, every rock had a spirit behind it, and every whatever like that's so that's problematic, because then you say, well, what is that doing for you in your ability to understand the rock and whatever? But the other option, when you say, oh no, the weather definitely doesn't have any agency to it, I don't know. Have you tried training it? Because we have tools in behavior science where you can actually address novel systems and ask, does this thing have habituation, sensitization, associative learning, predictive coding, metacognitive assessment, all that. These are not things you can have feelings about or preconceptions about. You have to do experiments. So my question is, yeah, you can entertain. I think you can entertain the idea that, wow, what if the whole galaxy is this like giant intelligence? Totally possible, but you can't say that until you've done some sort of experiment, and they have to be perturbational experiments. You can't do it just by observation. That's really key. They did these experiments in the 70s where this guy made these movies.
Well, I'm gonna just tell you though, Mr. Dr. Michael Levin, you're not gonna be able to, like I said, it ain't just observation. You're right. You gotta have other ways to prove it. But there's gonna be things you can't prove, bro. And we're probably not on the scale. Our scale is too small to have the proof truly.
the written proof truly of this galaxy, other than the observational. But maybe there is some more other proofs that we haven't discovered.
Where there were different shapes moving around, so triangles and squares and circles and things. And he would show them to people, and people go, "Oh, look, it's very obvious. The circle's in love with the square, and they're trying to run away, but the triangle keeps trying to break them." Like, you can tell these stories all day long, but the only way to develop them into things that help your research and help you understand nature is to do perturbational experiments. To say, fine, if I put my finger on the triangle and don't let it go, what's going to happen? Or I put a barrier, does the circle really go around and get the square? Like, what's actually going to happen? And so I'm completely open to potential intelligences at other scales of time and space. In fact, I did annoy a bunch of physicists at one point, asking them, could we design a planetary scale synapse? So some kind of a gravitational system where a pulse comes in, and so it's some sort of asteroid comes flying in, something changes, and then the next time, the next 3 asteroids come flying in, it does something different because it's learned and it's got, it's a synapse, right? So it has a historicity to it. And yes, I think you can design such things. Whether they occur in nature, I have no idea.
Well, there's some interesting anecdotes. I think there's some flyby anomalies with That's a hard word to say. There's some flyby anomalies with the Jupiter probes, that end up leaving their orbits at, and they're just kind of cataloged and moved on. And again, like, it's not such a perturbation. It's actually terrifying to think about perturbing another galaxy or something, and all of the people in that galaxy are like, what's going on? But I suppose you would need to do that because there are these anomalies. I mean, the galactic rotation problem is another really interesting one. It's like, we have a very robust model of gravity quantitatively. We've checked it out locally in our solar system to the best of our ability on Earth. And then we look at these large scale structures and it's like, well, they're moving by some other means. And it really opens the door. But I suppose without being able to mess with it, you can't really see if it's responsive or if it's just some physical process that we are not aware of yet.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Crossing levels between local physical process. Suppose you have a conversation with somebody, and you convince them to go to grad school. You have this, 4 really good arguments why they should go get their PhD, and they do. And then here, along comes a physicist and says, "How did you do that?" And you say, well, and they say, okay, so let's measure. So there was this air vibration, and it went into the eardrum, and then this. Okay, it's not that story is false. Mm-hmm. It's just completely useless that the next time somebody else needs to be talked into whatever it is, right? It doesn't capture the essence of what's going on, even though at the local scale, yes, it all was true and it all held together, and these are the sets of frequencies and air vibrations that happen. It misses the whole point of the story. So it's almost, I feel it's like, and again, this is just, kind of very hand wavy stuff, but I'm working on something a little better. The notion of synchronicity, right? The idea that there are large scale patterns that show up at specific observational scales when you as the observer know what to look for, but down below they are just chance, or they're, it's never magic, it's never against the laws of physics, but if you look at a larger scale, there's often like, yeah, wait a minute though, yeah, I know each one of these things kind of was random by itself, but all together there's something going on here, right? And so you have to know how to look for those patterns, and even better, you have to know how to read and write those patterns, which means perturbational experiments. So, I don't have any ideas on how to do perturbational experiments on galaxies, but like the weather kind of a thing should be absolutely tractable. And we did something like that with gene regulatory networks, because they're very simple dynamical systems, and you look at them and you say, well, that thing's kind of, for sure it's dumb. It's never going to look. Turns out they're capable of 6 different kinds of memory, including Pavlovian conditioning. And all it takes, you don't need cells, you don't need synapses, you don't need any of that. It's a handful of genes that turn each other on and off, and already you get this amazing free gift, which is that some of them, the biological ones anyway, they can learn.
The sun.
Today we're celebrating the summer solstice. This occurred this afternoon at 1:51 Pacific time. Now let's celebrate the summer solstice. The theme of this summer symposium is the nature of consciousness. And I knew I would be presenting today on the solstice itself, and I wondered, could it be that the sun is conscious? And
Of course it is, ma'am. The ancient Kemetic sciences says it is so. And it is who we call Ra, the supreme spirit of the supreme being. Do you not agree, ma'am?
And it turns out that a lot of other people have wondered this too. I began my research by referring to the monographs of the Second Temple degree, which explore the nature of consciousness. Here's an excerpt from one of those monographs. The masters of our tradition have always taught that cosmic consciousness permeates the entire universe, and that it vibrates in both non-living and living matter.
All things are alive.